Hey everybody, and welcome back to Video Game Esoteric, and we're continuing this series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project, and it's the last Thursday of the month. August has flown by, so it's time to do the MiSTer News Roundup, because there's been a ton of developments on MiSTer FPGA in the month of August. I'm going to go through each and every one of them. We're about a 17-minute video this week, so strap in, because you're going to have a lot of fun on the MiSTer FPGA side of things. And just so you know, there's no blood or tears in this video, but there's a lot of sweat. It's currently 101 degrees in Chicago as I record this on Tuesday. With the heat index, it feels like 111, and I had to turn my air conditioning off to get this voiceover done. So if you want to hit like and subscribe, I would appreciate it. I think the biggest news of the month has got to be Robert or FPGA Zoom Spots and Rule Set going back into the Nintendo 64 core and giving us a new update all version. As of the recording of this video, 100% of the retail library for Nintendo 64, all regions are going to be playable. There is not a single game that you can't play from start to completion on MiSTer FPGA on Nintendo 64 today. And while Robert hasn't released it yet, he is working on an update to the Turbo Core as well. I just saw on Discord, he said maybe 2 to 3 weeks for that, so it looks like September may have some Nintendo 64 love to share as well. But it's been so much fun to see the evolution of the Nintendo 64 core, and to see Robert go back in and make some tweaks along with the rule set, make some patches. Stuff like Rugrats in Paris were some of the games that you could not play because they'd have random freezing issues. Now that is completely fixed, alongside Resident Evil 2. So basically, development of Nintendo 64, the core-wise, ended in March and restarted basically in earnest in July, going through August. And we've had so many new fun features in the core as far as games are concerned. There's been some audio fixes, and a lot of games that we couldn't really play from start to finish before are now 100% playable and completable. So being able to say that the entire library of Nintendo 64 can now be played on MiSTer FPGA was an accomplishment, and that is an understatement. I did a little research on the RAM issues in Conquer, but for the most part, this has been something that Rule Set and FPGA Zoom Spots have spearheaded, and I can't wait to see what they come up with next. But if you've been holding off on playing the Nintendo 64 core, if you've been waiting to play a game that you didn't think worked, I can tell you right now, go into the playlist, check out my Nintendo 64 videos. There is a link to the patches in there, and I also teach you how to install the patches for the few games that do need them. And maybe in the future, as the core updates more, those patches will be non-essential, but right now a few games do require them. But Nintendo 64 had an absolutely awesome August, and I can't wait to see what September brings. Now let's move over to the hardware side of things. You're either already ordering the Taki Udon MiSTer FPGA clone as of watching this video, or it's going out very soon. It seems like it's going to happen sometime this week. And we've gone over all of the different diverse details on the triple stack, how much it's going to cost, what it's going to come with, and basically previewed it. And as soon as this thing is available, I will definitely do a full build and review on the channel, just like I did with the QM Tech clone. But it's awesome to be getting these clones at a much reduced price point than the Terasic DE10 Nano, because really all we want is more MiSTer FPGA users in the ecosystem. The more users, the more fun, the more people want to develop cores, the more core developers, maybe the more Patreon contributions for them, and the more systems we get preserved and playable in FPGA. So it's always awesome to see stuff like that. And honestly, $160 for a triple stack MiSTer FPGA is going to be a very appealing thing for everyone. So like I said, maybe these are up for sale right now. I do have to record these 48 hours in advance just to get them out, but if it's not live yet, definitely pay attention to Taki Udon's Twitter. I will leave a link in the description below, because that is where they're going to end up going in the future. So I can't wait to see how that shakes out and how they review, because the triple stack is just one component in the entire mix. We're also going to be seeing stuff like handhelds and other consoles. But the fact that they can figure out how to manufacture a Terasic DE10 clone under $99 is absolutely impressive, because while I don't think that Terasic is really asking too much for the capabilities of the DE10 Nano, I know a lot of you would like to spend less than giving Terasic that money, and that totally makes sense. So we'll have to see how this goes when I review it, but look out for those orders very soon. And there's also some information on some of the flagship as well. It really isn't a scaler anymore like we presumed. It is some sort of PVM style, or maybe even PS1 with an LCD screen or Dreamcast related console. So I can't wait to see what this is as well. Seems like something you can pick up and take to a friend's house, put down on the table and play. And there's not one but two MiSTer FPGA handhelds as well, and when there's more details on those, I'll definitely update a video, because that is the product I'm most interested in. I love my analog pocket, but I love MiSTer more because it can do more, and I want to be able to take that with me. Now moving over to the other clone side of things, the QM-Tech boards are shipping. Some of them have been out of stock a little bit, but at least for the recording of this video, you can grab the double GPIO header one with the 128 megabytes of RAM soldered into the back, and that was the one that I recommended over the two if you wanted to try out the QM-Tech clone series. And while I wasn't 100% in love with the boards because they really didn't have any ability to have a USB hub or an IO board on top and bottom, one of the makers of these boards, not QM-Tech but a third party, is sending me some for review. So I will do a full triple stack build guide of the QM-Tech clone with the included RAM on the bottom underside of the board, because that was one of my things that I really didn't love about this board. While it did function as a MiSTer, ran all the cores I would have wanted it to run, it just kind of felt more like a tinkering device and not something that had a full case with a USB hub and that IO board as well. So I will have that soon, and I know a couple of you guys have gotten these, and I will say they totally work as a MiSTer FPGA. I've been testing it in the background. If you want to see a video showing more test cores, leave me a comment down below and maybe I will make that. But it's just one of those things. This is a board that was in need of some add-on boards, and people are starting to make those now, so I'll definitely be doing that video. And these are definitely inexpensive boards as well as far as clones are concerned, but it really was the fact that I couldn't get any existing device to 100% function with it, and that's not the type of thing that I really want to recommend to the audience. One of the boards in and of itself has to have some soldering done before the user port would even be functional, compared to the traditional DE10 Nano and the triple stack that we pretty much always build. This was basically the setup as I tested the QM-Tech board, and again, it 100% does exactly what it's supposed to do. No hits there, but it was just one of those things. I really didn't have a really warm fuzzy feeling recommending it until some of those add-on boards came out, so expect a video on that soon. But the MiSTer clones are here, and they're definitely going to keep coming. Now moving over to the Sega Saturn side of things, SRG320 has been on a hot streak as well, updating the Sega Saturn core with a ton of improvements, new games that are basically on par with the existing Sega Saturn hardware, and even passing some accuracy tests that Emulation can't pass at its current state. And that's not to knock software emulation. I love it, and I use it all the time on the channel and in my personal life, but I know some people think that I must be some FPGA purist or real hardware purist. The only thing I care about is you play games and you have fun doing it. However you want to do so is totally up to you, but I'm pretty sure if you're watching this video, you do enjoy FPGA content. But getting something like Power Slave feeling like I'm playing it on a real Sega Saturn has been 10 out of 10 fun. The performance in this core now for a lot of games is indistinguishable from real hardware, and that's exactly what we want to be able to say when we talk about an FPGA core. You can't tell the difference between the core and playing on a real Sega Saturn, and even though the Sega Saturn has what I would consider to be the best RGB out of any console ever made, getting HDMI signals out of it is no easy feat obviously, so having that on MiSTer FPGA is a bonus. Stuff like the 480i mode still need to be addressed. We still don't have light gun support, but SRG320 is constantly updating this core. It seems like at least once a week at this point in time, and everything's just getting that much better. And again, some games that we didn't used to be able to play or had visual glitches now just seem to work exactly like real hardware. The core is not done, there's still more to come to it, but honestly for the most part, if you can think of a Sega Saturn game, odds are you can play it start to finish, and odds are you won't really notice any glitches in them. Sure, there's still a tiny little bit of weirdness here and there, but that is definitely to be expected for a work in progress core, and as the core updates more, I will definitely update more videos. But stuff like Princess Crown here has a little glitch here and there, but otherwise good to go. And on some of the tests, the SCSP test right here, every single test that you can throw on the core has a green pass on it. That's something that I do not believe any software emulator out there can do right now. And honestly, a fail doesn't mean it doesn't work, it just means it's not statistically correct, but it is still super impressive. There's also going to be some new MiSTer FPGA hardware videos coming soon. I have shot and uploaded a video for MiSTer Add-on's I/O Direct board, and you should be seeing that next week on Thursday. It would have been today, but this is the news episode week. And there's a lot of fun to be had on the MiSTer Add-on side of things with I/O Direct as well as the Analog Pro board, giving you even more ways to build MiSTer FPGAs basically suited to your individual needs. These are going to both feature 24-bit analog outputs in different manners, one with direct video and one with the Sega Saturn port right there, but it's awesome to get new hardware, so expect a video on that shortly. And don't forget, we also got a Sunset Riders core. Even though that happened at the end of July, it was after the MiSTer News video, so if you somehow missed the fact that Sunset Riders is here on the MiSTer FPGA Arcade side of things, this is your reminder that it is available from Jotego. You need to be a Patreon member and have that beta key to play it, but it's definitely worth flipping him like $4 a month to get all of these test cores early. And it was just so awesome to play Sunset Riders, because while the Super Nintendo port is an excellent port, and the Sega Genesis port's definitely lacking, the Arcade Original is exactly that. The Arcade Original, it is the best version of Sunset Riders you can play, and it is a very expensive, relatively speaking, arcade board if you actually want to pick up an original arcade board. Obviously, it's been a MAME for a long time, and the emulation is great there as well, but having another awesome Konami game in FPGA is spectacular. You will see there's a little bit of pixelation in the middle of the screen in some shots. This core is not complete. There's still going to be a visual bug here and there, but for the most part, you can just play this and ignore any sort of glitches because they are extremely minimal, and I'm sure it'll get updated soon with a new build, and then probably get out of beta and go to public release maybe 3 to 4 months from now. My guess would be you'll be playing this if you're not a beta member right around Christmas, because it seems like Jotego has his cores in beta somewhere 4 to 6 months depending on what we're talking about. But honestly, Sunset Riders is one of my favorite Konami games of all time, and while he hasn't yet released a Turtles in Time core, you know that's probably coming soon, so definitely be on the lookout for that. Jotego releases his cores on Friday. This is Thursday, so I'm guessing at least one fun new thing is going to happen tomorrow, so definitely check your email, check Jotego's Twitter, and see what he unleashes. Maybe Neo Geo Pocket Color, maybe Turtles in Time, we'll just have to wait and see. But if I'm a betting man, I think tomorrow you might be playing Neo Geo Pocket Color. Now, speaking of new arcade cores, RCAVictorCo is working on a Salamander Konami Shmup core, and he sent me over a test version. I did a video on it Monday, and hopefully this will be an update all soon. If you think Sunset Riders isn't a cheap arcade board, then go check the prices of Salamander. Pretty much every popular shmup on an arcade board absolutely holds its value, almost to the highest degree compared to any other genre out there. And if you think something like this is expensive, go take a look at some of the cave core prices we have. They are astronomical. But RCAVictorCo has been doing an excellent job making this core, and honestly I really can't see many glitches even if it isn't finished. And it's great to have another name to mention in news, because a lot of time I'm talking about FPGA Zoom's boss, Jotego and his team, and SRG320, so it's nice to have another person actively developing a core that we can play. I think Wickerwaka needs to look into some more IREM stuff to give me more to talk about. But if you've never played Salamander before, it's an awesome game, and if you've played it before, you know you're going to be excited to get this thing on an FPGA core. I bet this will probably be out sometime in September, but of course I don't really know the development timeline. Like pretty much everything MiSTer FPGA, it'll release when it is done and the developer is comfortable sending it out to the full public, but be on the lookout for that soon. And I can't wait to see what RCAVictor does after this. He's an excellent core developer, and the Salamander Work in Progress core is like a 9.5 out of 10 already, and it's not even done. And don't forget, the AmigaVision team released a whole package of Amiga CD32 games that will now run on the Mini Big core. Their Amiga variant of it just basically configures everything for you, because the Amiga CD32 is a very rare piece of hardware that is not cheap whatsoever, and while we have everything else Amiga on MiSTer FPGA basically at this point in time, CD32 games are one thing that we didn't have, and they weren't playable. Now like 85 to 90% of the library last time I checked will boot up and play on the Amiga core, and that's awesome. The AmigaVision team spends a lot of time packaging all of these things up, getting all of the configurations taken care of so you don't have to worry about it, and sending them out into the world so there's more Amiga love out there. So if you haven't checked out the Amiga CD32 games yet, definitely give them a go. I'll have a video next week on more games I recommend, but right off the top I can tell you right now, if you've never played Beneath the Steel Sky, this is your message to do so. It's one of the best adventure games of all time, not made by Sierra or LucasArts, and it is a really good version on the CD32 with a full voice and speech, and that's always a good time. Even stuff like Alien Breed 3D, the Amiga not really being known for 3D games, is a fun time. And you'll see here as we move forward, sure it's pixelated, sure it definitely seems like a Doom clone, but it's a lot of fun to check out and play around. And really just from a preservation standpoint, it's always great to get stuff like Amiga CD32 on MiSTer FPGA. No, it's not a core for the hardware for the CD32. It basically is just using the Amiga 1200 version of the core to make it load, but even if that's the case, you're still playing the games and it really still is awesome. If you never played Dark Seed before, awesome adventure game with kind of a horror aesthetic, and it works great on Amiga CD32 as well. So what are you waiting for? Pop over to the AmigaVision website, grab the files you need, and start playing CD32 games. If you need a guide on how to get everything set up, just check the MiSTer FPGA playlist on the channel. I go through the entire process, so you'll be playing Amiga CD32 before you know it. And one last bit on the hardware front, the M3 marsupial MiSTer FPGA multisystem is shipping more units, I believe in the PlayStation 1 variant that I showed you in this unboxing here. And while this is the high-end upper echelon of MiSTer FPGA kits, it has absolutely everything you need in a box, and it was absolutely spectacular testing it. I've been using this for some of my captures, and it does everything I need in a very fun design, including having Tap2 support. And Wizzo just sent me a box of hardware and Tap2 cards. I'm going to have an entire Tap2 review in the month of September as well, so definitely be on the lookout for that. But if you're looking for a new MiSTer system, this definitely is going to fit the bill if you want to go the high end of things. But honestly, the #1 takeaway out of the month of August is you can now play Rugrats in Paris, the best Nintendo 64 game ever made. All jokes aside, Nintendo 64 progress has been amazing. But that's the month of August. We'll see you in September. We're done. Bye bye.